Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be addressing a subject that's, a bit controversial in the kind of fitness space, and that is protein bars and the kind of snack bars that, you get sold to as fitness options or healthy options. A lot of people kind of think these things are going to help them gain muscle or maybe even lose fat. Some people avoid them totally and think that they're totally horrible and they never eat them because, they just think they're kind of mislabeled chocolate bars. So we're going to take a look at, what they actually are. We're going to take a look at one of the most popular ones in the UK, and it's pretty much taking over the rest of the world, and that is Grenade. So I've obviously chosen the best possible flavour there is, which is the Oreo. I think second best flavour on these is the salted caramel. If you disagree with me, then you are wrong and you are obviously a psychopath, because they are clearly the best flavours. They all are much of a muchness in terms of nutrient profile, so we can certainly take this one as a generalised profile of what the others are. Look, I'll get this out the way first. These things taste amazing. They definitely fill a need if you've got like a sweet tooth and you want to eat something. The issue is choosing one of these basically not much different from choosing a standardized chocolate bar. And are you really doing yourselves a favor? Because these things are expensive, guys. You probably know that yourselves if you've looked at them or bought them. You can pick them up in the supermarkets. They range from about £2.20 on an offer up to about £2.70. If you buy them in like a roadside petrol station, they're about £3.50, which is crazy money. And if you buy them really sensibly, maybe on Amazon or eBay, and you get one that's kind of late on date and stuff, you can pick up like a box of these things. I think they come in boxes of 12, and you pick up a box. That'll set you back, if you're lucky, about 15 quid or about 20 quid. So, they're still not cheap. If you bought Mars bars like that, they would be a hell of a lot cheaper. And, you're looking at maybe double to, triple the price in some cases of buying like a standardized chocolate bar. So that would be worth it maybe if you're really getting some sort of health benefit, or if you're avoiding some of the negative impacts that you might get from eating a standard chocolate bar. So let's get into it and let's make a comparison. So I've picked probably the UK's favourite chocolate bar, the Humble Mars bar. Most of us have eaten one of those. They're considered to be a pretty naughty snack, and if you're eating those every single day, you're probably not doing yourselves much of a favour. Are they okay to eat every once in a while? Yeah, of course they are. Like pretty much any food is okay to eat every once in a while as a cheat. We're not trying to run like a concentration camp regime that's impossible to stick to. I cheat every single Friday. This Friday I had a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, one of the new Sunday ones. It was awesome. I think it was the caramel chocolate nut. And I had a portion of chips that I cooked in the air fryer and had them with some mayo and vinegar. Also awesome. But that's one day a week. The rest of the week I'm bang on a diet. And I also had, actually on Friday, one of these while I was walking around the shops. On a Friday I go shopping and I always treat myself. Once I've done the shopping, I eat a Grenade bar. So that's my like one time a week. Then I have a treat at the shops. Okay, so let's have a look. So Mars bars come in at like 51 grams, and these Grenade bars come in at 60 if you buy the full size one. They are available, I think, in a slightly smaller size, which you get sometimes if you buy like a multi-pack in the supermarket, but in general terms people are going to be buying the 60 gram size. So it's not quite apples for apples comparison. Obviously the Mars bar's slightly smaller, it's 9 grams smaller, but these are the two bars that people would be most likely to buy if they were buying one or the other. Okay. So Mars bar, 228 calories, and this might actually shock you guys a bit. The Grenade bar, 233 calories. So right off the bat, we can see that this isn't like a low calorie option. You know, people that are thinking, oh, that's going to help me lose weight, it's much lower in calories. No, it isn't much lower in calories, it's actually slightly higher. Neither of them are like crazy in calories, but they're certainly you know, more than you would want to just generally overeat. If you were having one of those extra plus on your meals every day, that's a lot of calories to intake over the week. So then we come to fats, and the Mars bar has 8.5 grams of fat, and again you might be surprised to find the Grenade bar has 10 grams of fat. The main difference here, there's a slight difference in the saturated fat content. The Mars bar's got 4.1, the Grenade 5.5. That's not really a big enough difference to be either here nor there. The fact of the matter is, you know, there's fat in both. Fat per se isn't bad, but it is bad if you're already consuming too much fat in your diet and you're concerned about calories. Then obviously the more fat you're going to consume, the more calories you're intaking, and that's not good to just add it on to whatever else you're eating. Now, this is where I think the Grenade bars are a little bit misleading, because if you have a look at these, 21 grams of protein, okay, great, and then 1 gram of sugar, it says up there, and down there as well, 1 gram of sugar. So they're making a big deal about this only 1 gram of sugar, and that sounds to me like, well, it can't possibly be a chocolate bar. You know, it's nothing like a chocolate bar. It's only got 1 gram of sugar, guys, so it's classing itself in a completely different space, or so most people would think. The problem is, we look at the carbs. Mars bar, 35.3 grams of carbs, and the Grenade has 20 grams of carbs, so a little bit less, not a massive amount less, but again, the body, you know, in terms of carbs, that's really not a huge deal, and either way, really, you know, not a huge deal. But what the difference is in the sugars, you know, the Mars bar has 30.5 grams of those carbs coming from sugars, and the Grenade bar has 1 gram of carbs coming from sugars. So let's get this straight. It doesn't make any difference about coming from sugars or not. The fact of the matter is, they both contain processed carbohydrates. And like I've said before, it doesn't matter in processed carbohydrate terms if those carbs come from actual sugars, or whether it's, you know, processed wheat, or it's ground up rice flour. They're all going to be treated the same in the body. They're all going to send your glycogen levels sky high. You know, if you eat either of these things, your blood sugars are going to, you know, go through the roof, because they contain these processed carbohydrates that are very quickly into the system. And pretty much the only thing that you could put in here that might prevent that from happening would be some fibre, and neither one has really got much fibre. I think the Grenade's got 1.2 grams, and the Mars bar doesn't actually publicise any fibre content at all. It will have a tiny amount, but nothing worth publicising. But neither of those figures, to be fair, are anywhere near the amount that you would want to kind of slow the increase in your blood sugars. So neither of them are going to do you any good. The fact that this has 1 gram of sugars in it, but the rest come from a bunch of other carb sources, and we'll go through the ingredients list in a minute to see where they do come from, that the body doesn't care about that. You know, it doesn't care which one's sugars and which one's not. Maybe you could argue that there would be some benefit slightly for your teeth, but even then, teeth are affected by carbohydrates. It isn't the fact that one's really sugary and sweet and the other one isn't. It's carbs per se that increase, tooth decay. So that's not great either. The only benefit would be if you had a protein bar that had whole carbs, whole grain carbs in it. So if you had something that maybe you made it at home and you used whole rolled oats and a bunch of seeds and stuff like that and a bunch of nuts, then you would have more fiber content, because those things have a lot more fiber, which, as we've just mentioned, that would slow down the increase in blood sugar. and B, you know, it would take a lot longer for your stomach to break those things down, and you'd be digesting them over a longer period of time. So the release of carbohydrates or glycogen into the bloodstream would be a lot slower, and therefore you wouldn't get such a sugar spike. Why are sugar spikes bad? Because they predispose us to become diabetic. They are much more likely to lead to you putting on midsection body fat, because your body, once it's kind of peaked at how much glycogen it can have in its bloodstream, and it's stored as much as it can in the muscles and in the liver, etc., the rest will be turned into fat, and it generally gets stored around the midsection. So you definitely don't want that, and it doesn't matter if it's sugar, it's any carbs, you know, that are boosting your blood sugar right up like that. So it could be white potatoes, for example. It really doesn't matter. Now, one of the benefits of the Grenade bar is protein. So the Mars bar only has 2.2 grams of protein, and the Grenade bar has 21. 21 is a pretty decent amount of protein, but if you eat a Grenade bar, you can kind of tell, you know, it gets broken down as you chew it very quickly. It basically turns into kind of a liquid whey protein in your mouth as you chew into it, and that's going to be in and out of the system pretty quickly. It could be useful, you know, to boost your protein intake a little bit, but it's not probably the best protein source. It's not giving you like a nice long extended drip feed of protein. Because if you ate something like a steak, you know, again, that's taking a long time to break down, and that's going to give you this sort of drip feed of protein through a long period of time, and your body's going to be able to utilize that. If you suddenly throw in 21 grams of protein and, you know, it's in and out in half an hour kind of thing, because this is pretty much liquid protein once you've chewed it up, then it's going to be in and out of the body pretty quickly as well, and you're just not going to be able to absorb a huge amount of protein from it. So yes, it's better than a Mars bar, but it's certainly not better than actually eating something that would be a substantial meal that had that same protein value. If you had a choice between eating one of these and eating, you know, a piece of meat or some sort of meal that a combination of vegetables, rice and beans or whatever that had a decent protein profile, then you should definitely choose the whole foods every time. Salt, the Mars bar 0.21 and the Grenade actually more 0.35. So if you're like me and you're keeping an eye on your salt levels, then obviously the Grenade isn't going to be doing you any favors there. They're not massively high, but they're certainly, you know, higher than I would want to be eating on a regular basis. And then we get back to the fibre again, which we just mentioned, just 1.2 in the Grenade bar. So those nutrient values aren't particularly great for Grenade. You know, they're certainly not something that you would buy to lose weight, and they're certainly not something that you're going to buy and it's going to put on muscle. I mean, you would have to have a pretty terrible diet. If you ate pot noodles all day and literally nothing else, or like, you know, just snacked on crisps and rubbish or whatever, then eating one of these with its 21 grams of protein, yeah, that would be better for you than not eating any protein at all. But most of us are able to eat meals that have a reasonable amount of protein in them. So I don't see that substituting with this would be, you know, a great benefit in terms of protein. Like I said, it's just in and out too quick. The other issue I take with these is that because you've got a fairly high fat content, you've got 10 grams of fat in there, and I mean, in most people's diets, they're not going to be taking in a huge amount in grams of fat every day, so that could be a fairly substantial portion of what they're actually intaking. And it's also got a carb source, like we said, that's going to raise your blood sugar levels quite high. When you raise your blood sugar levels quite high, that promotes insulin, which is a shuttle that takes these things around the body. Insulin doesn't just shuttle glycogen around the body and out of the blood and into various places, it also shuttles fat around the body. So if you're sparking your insulin levels and you're also intaking a large quantity of fat, that's going to be shuttled off to fat storage pretty rapidly. So it's generally not a good idea to have really processed carbohydrates or simple carbs like sugars in combination with something that's very fatty. So that's why eating chocolate bars in general tends to make you fat. You know, it's not a great health choice. You would be better off maybe just having something with carbs alone and then separating out something else that maybe just had fats alone. So in my diet, I tend to have my porridge oats in the morning with some protein. So that's like a carb and protein meal where I try and keep the fats quite low. And then after that, the meals I'm eating are, you know, meat and salad with some olive oil and some vinegar dressing. So that tends to be a protein fat meal. And I'm never really, apart from cheat day, having meals that are high in the carbs and the fats, because that's going to obviously lead to you not having a great body type. And that's a mistake a lot of people make, is that they're just eating these meals without thinking or maybe even knowing about that. So they're combining, you know, high fat, high carb, and then a bunch of protein as well, and they're just thinking that's an all-round good meal, when they'd probably be better splitting these things up and just thinking the diet out a little better. So I don't think these are great as a kind of health benefit. I don't think they're a health benefit in any way, let's put it that way. Sorry Grenade, I really like your products, I absolutely think they're delicious, but I don't think they are, you know, can be sold as like a benefit to people's health. They're not going to improve people's health in any way. Do I think they are a better option than buying chocolate bars? Yes, I do, because the bottom line is they do contain a higher protein value than the chocolate bar. So personally, I would still opt for this, just because you know, I'm not going to go wrong by kind of boosting my protein a bit more, as long as I understand that both of these options are basically a treat. And then interestingly, if we take a look at the ingredients here, it's stunningly close. I could read out either ingredient list for the Mars bar or the Grenade bar, and they're almost the same. They both contain whey protein, calcium caseinate in this way, milk, and this one contains a lot of sweeteners, so it's got maltitol in it, because obviously they're trying to keep the sugar content low. Cocoa butter, again, same sort of thing. Milk powder, same thing. Cocoa mass, same thing. They both got the emulsifier soy lecithin in them, some natural flavouring, bovine collagen hydroisolate, so that's obviously from cows. So if you're a vegan or whatever, don't eat Grenade bars because it's got some cow in it. Doesn't bother me though. And then sweeteners, maltitol, sucralose, then palm oil. So that's probably one of the sources of a lot of this fat in here. Some people really don't like intaking palm oil because it's associated with deforestation and the problems with pushing the orangutans out of their natural habitat. So that might be a downside for people that are selecting these and are concerned about palm oil. Palm oil also is a pretty damn cheap oil, and it's not something I would choose to intake. I would much rather have in my fat content, I would rather make that up out of things like hemp oil, fish oil, olive oil. You know, they've all got various different benefits. There's certainly no one talking about the health benefits of palm oil. It's just damn cheap, and that's why companies use it. Water, fat reduced cocoa powder, flour, maize starch, rapeseed oil, which again, rapeseed oil is a damn cheap oil, not particularly anything good about that. Bulking agent polydextrose, which is pretty much more carbohydrates, and then sea salt, raising agents, ammonium carbonate, sodium carbonates, acidity regulator, sodium hydroxide, and flavourings. And there's very little difference. I won't bother reading through the Mars one. There's slight differences to a couple of the kind of stabilizers and whatever, but overall they're virtually the same apart from the sugar content. So in effect, guys, understand that when you're eating these type of protein bars, you're pretty much having a Mars bar with extra protein in it, and that's why they taste bloody good. You know, anyone who's eaten one of these would probably, like I first ate one of these and thought, wow man, you know, this tastes awesome, and how can this be a healthy thing? And you're kind of wondering and thinking, oh, I found a sort of guilt-free pleasure. it's not a guilt-free pleasure. It's basically a chocolate bar. So if you're going to eat it, treat it like a chocolate bar. You don't have to kind of drag yourself over the coals about that. I'm not saying that for a minute there's anything wrong with people consuming nice chocolate bars and having a treat, but just understand that that's what you're doing. I do find with these kind of things, this like 1 gram of sugar and the healthy protein aspect of it is a little bit disingenuous, because a lot of people, look, we all want to believe in things that kind of are what we want to hear. You know, you believe what you want to hear, and everyone wants to hear that that yummy grenade bar they've eaten was totally guilt-free and they can have as many as they want, and that's kind of where they're happy. And that's the problem, is that people could overconsume and they're not realizing that basically they might as well just do the same with Mars bars. There's not going to be a huge difference in between the two. I hope that helps you make some choices. I'm not knocking these things at all. Like I said, I eat them regularly, once a week on cheat day. I really like them. If I'm stuck out at work and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes I'm struggling to get anything with protein in it, and I know that I've got a break at 11 o'clock and I can't like go off and eat any whole foods because I'm working and I've just got 5 minutes, then I do take some of these things, and I take a couple of the ready to drinks as well, and I use them for that. You know, they're supplements, so use them as supplements. They can be useful, probably better than having no protein at all. At least I'm keeping my calories up and keeping my energy up. But if you just sat around in the evening on the sofa, you know, and you're binging on these things, stop doing that, get off your butt, actually go and cook some decent quality food, put a meal plan together, and then you're going to get the body you actually want, instead of just thinking that you're doing yourself a favour with all these branded pre-packed things. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.